Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing okay out there. I mean, that we having to deal with a lot of things lately, and of course, not being able to assemble for a good portion of the past few months has been difficult. And of course, the virus going around has really caused a lot of problems for a lot of people. And still, life continues as it normally does. People get sick and they pass away, and so we just need to remember to pray for everybody, whether they're diagnosed with the COVID-19 or if they have some other problems. So remember that. I want to talk about a subject today that is important. It's about motivation, getting us motivated. Some people have a hard time getting motivated, and they sometimes do not feel the energy to get up and do something that might even need to be done. And of course, we know there's some people who always have that type of energy. They get busy when something needs doing. And what motivates them is probably several factors. Of course, doing a good job and getting the recognition for it is a good motivator. Sometimes people need something like a paycheck to keep them motivated doing their job, and then so they can get their pay. And so there's different things that cause and motivate us to do these things. And of course, honestly, there's times when we really don't feel like jumping into the task that needs to be done. Sometimes we procrastinate, we put it off. If we can wait till tomorrow, we'll do that. If we can wait till next month or next year, we might do that. Sometimes on the workplace, certain things have to get done regardless. And if you won't do it, somebody else will. So there's a kind of a motivation there. First of all, you keeping your job is a good motivation, and not losing your job is another type of motivation. All right. Let's make a spiritual application here. All right. We also have to deal with motivation, as whether we're a Christian or a non-Christian. We need something that will motivate us to look for and do those things that are really necessary. Now, in the Bible, God gives us several motivating factors. Yes, we are to serve him because we love him, and basically because he loved us. And so that is a good way of looking at it. Yes, we do that. But also, in a negative sense, he told us through his son Jesus and others that hell is a place, it is a horrible place. It is a place of darkness, pain, crying, and separation from God, and loss of any hope that they might seek to find with what God has offered. So while we're alive, if we take these measures, we can find the hope that he offers and avoid this horrible place. So when you realize that hell is real and will be for those who do not serve God and do not keep his commandments, that we read there in 2 Thessalonians 1, realization of this should cause anyone to amend their ways and start doing those things which will keep them out of hell. But as we look around and look at reality, people don't seem to care. I mean, they don't care if hell exists. They just go through their life living how they want to live, and that is pure selfishness. That is what we call sin. There's not a sin that we do and commit that isn't promoted by selfishness. We don't do things, we do these things because we want to do them, and that's because we're selfish. And even though God said don't do it, well, if the moment is there, we do that. So if we want to have a relationship with God, and having a relationship with him is vital to us missing out and avoiding hell, so we need to seek to learn what God wants from us. Well, thankfully, God was merciful enough to provide the way of salvation through his son Jesus. And we know that our obedience to his teaching will help us get into heaven. But yet we also understand that God has given us the provisions we need to live our daily lives, and he tells us how to do it. It's more than just a simple matter of faith only. I mean, there's more involved in it. In fact, there's a whole lot more involved in it. And so we just need the proper motivation to consider these thoughts. All right. After we obey the gospel through our baptism, we need to be motivated to continue on with our lives as Christians. Well, one of the great motivations is the fact that in the end, we'll be able to spend eternity with God in heaven. So we had to put the old members of our lives to death and put on the new life in Christ. Colossians 3, 1 through 10 tells us about that. And of course, we all know that change is hard to accomplish. That's something that one of the hardest things for people to do is to change. Even if they are shown that things will be better for them if they do change, I mean, it takes a long time. Sometimes you have to threaten people just to get them to accept change. And so in the workplace, even though something might be better, people do not like change. People get into their routines and they do what they want to do. And anything that disrupts the routine that they're comfortable with is going to be a problem for them. So, and of course, this is something we have to realize. Everybody's got to make a change in their life, changing from being a sinner to a child of God. And there's a lot involved in that. And we must do it. We must make the change if we want to go to heaven. Now, if people aren't concerned about heaven, they're not going to do any changing. They're just going to let things go as they are. So this is just some thoughts that we have about motivating us. See, also as we grow as a Christian, we need motivation to study the Bible on a regular basis. I mean, if there's no reason for you to study the Bible, do you pick it up and start reading it? Most people don't. They don't have a motivator to get them involved. So maybe preparing for a Bible class. Well, that's a good motivation. If you're teaching the class, yes, you have to study it and be ready to teach it. Others, if they want to be participants in the class, they need to know what the subject is. And so they need that type of motivation. And then, of course, we need motivation to attend all the assemblies of the local church. If we're a member of a local church, we're subject to the rules and the guidelines that church has established. And if they establish a Bible class time once or twice a week, or if they establish a worship once or twice, I mean, we're subject to that. Some congregations, they just have one Sunday service only, and they don't have any more. And of course, if you're a member of that church, then that's what you're required to do. But some people want to take the rules that might apply in one place and say, well, it's not necessary in another place. No. Whatever congregation you're associated with, if they've set up a time for class, if they've set up a time for gospel meetings, if they've set up a time for worship assembly, then as a member of that congregation, you are obligated to be there. So we need to do that. We also need the motivation to encourage others to be faithful. This is one of those things which we usually call, well, I don't want to rock the boat, or I don't want to stir up trouble or anything like that. See, what Jesus said, when you see your brother in sin, what do? You go to that brother. You need to talk to them. And you need to take witnesses if necessary and then bring it up before the church. And this is primarily things that cause a harm upon the church or a reflection upon the church in a negative way. And because we are told to keep the church pure in its doctrine and its teaching. And so, yes, it is the household of God, and we've got to keep it pure. All right. We also need encouragement. We need encouragement from others. So we eventually do that. And basically, when we eventually get to the point where we should be motivated to share our faith with others. See, this does not mean one must be a polished speaker who preaches a sermon. No, just have enough compassion in your heart for the plight of those who are lost. That should motivate you, because let's face it, let's be honest. Everybody you're going to meet today, with few exceptions, is a lost individual. And so if you go to the grocery store, if you go out to the mall, if you go walking the trails, just about everybody is going to be lost. Occasionally you'll meet up with another Christian and someone you might know, but for the most part, everybody you come in contact with is lost. So what can motivate me to start talking to them about salvation? And so, yes, there's a motivation there. So we need that compassion. And so now, helping others should be a quality that we possess and must motivate ourselves to serve others. Jesus talked about that. We are servants of one another. Serve one another, as he said there in Galatians 5. So, yes, we are to serve one another. And we do this by providing for them what they need. Now, what do people need to help them get to heaven? Well, they need encouragement. They need edification. They need the teaching. Sometimes they need the reprimands. And so we just need to find and have the wisdom to understand what they need in a particular situation. If you're not sure you have that wisdom, all you have to do is ask God. James 1:5 says he supplies it abundantly. So ask God for this wisdom. And one of the hardest things to do is to motivate yourself. And usually we need an outside factor to motivate us to do something. And like I say, we put it off as long as we can, but you look out and you see the floors are dusty. Well, that needs to be cleaned up. What's it going to take to motivate you? Well, maybe you have company coming over. You get busy and clean your floors, right? But if you don't have plans on company coming, what's going to motivate you to clean up your floors? All right, let's look at spiritual application. What's going to motivate you to clean up your life? And so we need to do this. And here's the way I look at it. See, it's not always easy to motivate yourself. So perhaps if you focus on Jesus instead of yourself, you will find all the motivation you need. See, whether the motivation is negative, not going to hell, or positive, going to heaven, we need to motivate ourselves to do those things which God tells us can get us into heaven. Doing his will, following his word, those will get us into heaven. So, yes, we all need motivation, and we need to be ready to not only motivate ourselves, but we need to motivate others as well. So think about this, and if you want to, just share this with others. It's a very simple message, and one that needs to be spoken to a lot of people, because a lot of people demonstrate the fact that they're not motivated. And even if they go to church, a lot of times they're not motivated to participate. They're not motivated to continue these things. They don't attend all the assemblies they could attend. And so, yes, people need motivation, and that's really not going to happen until we motivate ourselves to be there to encourage them, to give them edification and admonishment if necessary. So that's our lesson for the day. Very simple lesson, but one that needs to be heard. So share this with others, and remember to pray for all these individuals we talked about. Pray for those who are lost, that they will see the truth, that pray that you'll be the one to shine a light of example for them, that they can inquire about God and what it takes to get to heaven. So be a part in this. See, God started a work in you when you obeyed the gospel. Now fulfill that work. That's what we should be doing. All right, so hopefully this motivates you to think about it and get going. You know, sometimes it takes a lot of motivation get out and exercise. Well, sometimes we need that motivation. Watch one of the first 2 or 3 Rocky movies, and yeah, there's music. That music starts up, and yeah, I want to get this, and you start exercising. Well, you need some sort of motivation. So let's do that. So let's wrap this up for today, and we hopefully, Lord willing, will see you tomorrow. All right, bye-bye for now.